Hello, everyone. Do you hear me? I
Hi.
froze, I think. Hello, everyone. I'm Chris Hewitt. I am the director of the Hudson Valley Current, and you're here with us live for our current 5 at 5 talk. And today's topic is the Current Community Protection Plan. We're here with Dr. Leanne Ussher, and today we will be talking about how the Hudson Valley Current will be rolling out our Community Protection Plan on July 1st to celebrate Independence Day and our vibrant community. Let's take a look at the differences between the Federal CARES Act that created the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, and the current CCPP. Let's permanently lock money into our local economy by embracing the current. As a complementary currency, the current is designed to strengthen the dollar. And we're here with Dr. Leanne Ussher. She's an expert in sustainable macroeconomic systems, economic thought theory and history, complementary currency application and system analysis, while serving as a member of the American Economic Association and other amazing organizations. And my co-host Keyvious Avery is here to help keep us on track. Welcome, Leanne.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'm
Glad
excited
to be here.
because Leanne is a person that kept me on track all last semester as she was my professor. And the reason the reason I've been connected with Hudson Valley Current is through her class. So this is just an amazing opportunity because I look up to both of you. So thank you for having me a part of this. And Leanne, I want to take a step back and just know what got you into economics, and then shift that into what got you into complementary currencies.
Okay, I'll try and keep it brief because that's I find that an interesting story. So I was a exchange student. I'm Australian. I went overseas to the Philippines for a year. I came back. I was ready to go to university, and I wanted to be an anthropologist. And I was studying, psychology, anthropology, and someone told me take an economics class. So I took an economics class and microeconomics principles, and I thought, oh my God, this is so bizarre. What people are maximizing profit and maximizing their utility with no care in the world for other people? That doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. And I thought it was so bizarre. And with my anthropologist hat on, I decided to stay and study these people. And that's how I got into economics.
That's interesting that you say maximizing utility without necessarily considering other people. And that's something that the current highlights is engaging in the economy as an individual while considering other people. And it goes back to that topic of reciprocity and value. And I know we've talked about reciprocity and value a lot here, but Chris, what inspired you to create to embark on a movement of creating economies where people consider each other, and why is that important?
Well, as we mentioned a little bit this week with our different guests throughout the week, I was raised in a very Sicilian household where food was the symbol of our abundance. Even when my parents were struggling before they started their successful printing company, it seemed like we were doing fine. It seemed like we were thriving because the dinners and meals were always so vibrant. And over time, I had friends who were struggling in high school who can come over and eat any night at my house. And so they started to see abundance through my family. And getting older, sometimes I've been criticized for being too generous because I have a real desire to share everything I have. And so even if I have nothing, I'll still give away more. And so then the question becomes, what is nothing? There's never nothing because we all have value to continue to offer when we recognize what our values are. And so even when I, volunteer at Women's Studio Workshop and I'm a cook in their kitchen, if I'm cleaning pots and maybe doing a job that is scrubbing under a sink or something, I put my all into it, my heart and soul into it, because it's just like landing $1 million grant to me to wash a pot. I have to try my best to put my best value and my best foot forward because I see that in everyone else, that we're all valuable, we're all beautiful.
Yeah, and that takes me to when I first began learning about economics, I focused on the dollar. And it wasn't until last semester where I began to focus on local currencies. And what you touched on, Chris, is that there's value in every single person. However, we see that the dollar misses the mark in a lot of ways. So Leanne, can you touch on the importance of local currencies as you study, or how impactful local currencies can be to local economies?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people um, are inquiring and asking right now, what is money? Because it is a complicated answer to give. And for many people in economics, money is an accounting system. It is simply an IOU that is issued by somebody. And Hyman Minsky said that he's a famous Wall Street and academic who was at the Levy Institute at Bard College. He said anyone can print money. It's just how do you get it accepted? And he's totally right. Anybody can print money. This is not a problem. You just write on a piece of paper and say, I owe you. But the question is, who accepts it? And how do they trust that someone else will accept it? And if you consider it as an IOU and you look at it as on the balance sheet, then it's really an accounting system. And what we learned in 2008 when blockchain came out was that really private individuals can create money. They created Bitcoin, had nothing to do with the government, had nothing to do with banks. In fact, it was purposely not government and not about banks, because a lot of people are fed up with government and banks, right? So, because, you know, these entities that create money, it's in their own interest, it's with their own design. They have the politics embedded in them. And so the question is, can a community that has community goals and unites together, can they create a currency that achieves their goals rather than them being prisoner to the financial sector or the dollar?
Mm-hmm. You remind me of how what Bitcoin did is help people realize that we can get rid of the extractive middleman. In fact, its design was built to not have anyone approve things because the structure of approvals and trust was so strong. And just so our viewers understand, a blockchain is like playing telephone with information. And if the block A says that I paid Leanne $100, then it's like telephone. Block B says Chris paid Leanne $100, and C has to say that. By the time it gets to Z, it still has to say I paid Leanne $100, or the data is corrupted somewhere in the middle and the transaction doesn't go through. So the system of blockchain and cryptocurrencies in general helps us remove the extractive middleman from our financial policy and the people who take high percentages of interest or a portion of our check at check cashing places. But to go back to your question, Keyvious, I feel like one issue is a mindset of profit above all else. And so why are dollars extractive and why do they take value out of our communities? Because if we can identify value in that community, let's say cement in Rosendale, we'll extract as much cement as we can and sell it around the world, and then destroy the town when we're ready to leave. And so that mentality of the profit and the money being the king means the people are valueless. And I believe we're evolving to shift that perspective.
Yeah, and that takes me to the current community protection plan, and because one is we're placing a lot of value into the individual agents of the economy, and I think that whole shift is what highlights the difference between PPP, the Paycheck Protection Plan, and CCPP, the current community protection plan. It highlights exactly what we're protecting there, right? One is protecting the paycheck, another is protecting a community that embraces a local currency that is the current. So when I wonder, considering that the PPP exists, right, is what made you all shift and put your focus on creating your own protection plan, which is the CCPP? What voice did you see inside the PPP, and what areas did you see that the PPP did not cater to the community well enough?
Well, Leanne, may I answer? That's what I love about working with Leanne. She helps me understand things about money and my community work that I can't necessarily see when I'm a practitioner in the field every day trying to start new businesses or engage a different community or help someone understand what we're doing. Whereas Leanne analyzes the data that we've built up over 7 years and at least teaches me how the relationship between money, value, exchange, reciprocity are all very important to our work. And I could go back and describe how we met Leanne and our relationship, but maybe you want to answer Keyvious's question.
Yeah, I mean, I think we have to, all of us, especially citizens, discovered that money comes out of a tap. After COVID, the Treasury just spent 37 billion, right? They just spent it. The central bank spent over $1 trillion. I think that money came out of nowhere. And that allowed everyone to reimagine what is the purpose of money. Now, in local currency or any monetary theory, many people realize that money is simply a coordinating mechanism. And you have to, when coordination breaks down, money is something that gets people coordinated again. And if we can coordinate at a hyper-local level, that we are respecting reciprocity and getting the unemployed and those who are staying at home trained online, getting all the spare resources we have, and we have lots, like the amount of spare resources and innovation that is possible is almost unlimited. We just need the ability to start something and be a social entrepreneur. And that's what the Current is offering to everyone who becomes a member. They get a line of credit where they can become a social entrepreneur and start something. And all they need are community members to help them. And the money helps to pay for that coordination. And once you're able to pay for that coordination, you can start trading. My value added is traded with someone else's value added. And now we've got an economy that's humming along.
Nice, beautiful. I like that you said that there's so many possibilities, because in a way that's what inspired our direction working on the CCPP. When I learned about the Paycheck Protection Program and I quickly applied for it, so many small businesses were left out of that funding stream as bigger, more sophisticated businesses scooped up that money really quickly within a week. And we were fortunate enough to get some of that federal funding because we are used to writing grants. We're used to getting applications in quickly. But that in a way is a benefit that we have that not everyone gets to have. So I started thinking, if the federal government can create such a quick program, a paycheck protection program to protect people's pay, then we, as a third-party record keeper mutual credit system, can quickly create something too, and create this abundance here that locks our wealth and our talent and our value into the community through what we're calling the current community protection plan. Now, the beauty of this is Leanne and I worked together about 2 years ago to create a network analysis of the Hudson Valley Current. It's a real beautiful quantitative study primarily that shows how the current has flowed through our communities over 6 years. But on March 10th, Leanne started working with a doctor of social science, Michael Marks, who's helping create a qualitative study combined with the quantitative study that analyzes dollars and currents starting right when COVID broke out on March 10th. And it's a 6-month study that goes to September 10th. And so we're very excited to be launching a CCPP as part of the analysis of Kingston and the surrounding areas. So for me, it was just about being inspired to think creatively. Like you said, Leanne, money is able to be shaped, molded, and create new possibilities for connection. I never thought of that. Money can inspire a connection quickly.
And I want to build off that point is what makes that connection possible, right? There are ways where we can retain value within communities, and there are ways that value can be extracted from communities. And so I like 4 aims that comes with the CCPP. I just want to touch on each one. and then talk about the decision behind creating those aims and how they help to retain value in communities. So the first is the 10,000 to 100,000 current line of trust. What, why such an emphasis on the trust, and how does that protect our community? And this is for both of you, so you can bounce back.
I love calling it a line of trust more than a line of credit. And I'm actually starting to lean fully away from line of credit, because credit is related to interest and fees. And our lines, let's say even going below 0 to negative 300, that's a line of trust, and it's our community's trust in me and my value that allows me to go below 0. Anything to add, Leanne?
Yeah. This any monetary system is actually circular, and when it is in a hyperlocal geography, it's like a petri dish. Just imagine a community that has highways that are going through it. They're coming in and going out, right? That would be US dollars. People drive in, or people hop onto that highway, they get paid, and then they leave, and it's gone. But if you have little roads that are going from shop to supplier in the supply chain, and people are spending and earning and spending and earning, it's completely cyclical. And that means, because we all have to drive our car around and earn and spend, that multiplier, which is what means that the initial dollar that is issued can be spent here and then spent somewhere else, it's actually infinite. I mean, you can create an infinite amount of GDP. The only, given that you have unlimited resources. And as we just spoke about, the limit on our resources is somewhat imaginary, because there's a lot of services, there's a lot of innovation that we can actually exchange with each other. And so if what this circuit is giving us is this reciprocity, we're driving around and we're actually in effect, the money is sort of being driven around in a circle. What we spend gets spent someone else, gets spent somewhere else, and then comes back to us so that we can finance our spending again. And that's where the line of trust is. The trust is that by me spending, I know I'm going to earn. And while that is a statistical phenomenon, it is true. It is a fact that if I spend and those next people keep spending it and earning it, at some point it's going to come back to me. And if not me, it's going to come back to someone in our community. So it's really critical to understand the interaction between people and not limit ourselves to just one person and their paycheck.
Yeah, and I think what you touched on, I really like the analogy of an expressway versus which I'll do like a roundabout kind of, or like a loop, right? One way, and this takes me to my second point, is looking at exactly what extracts value from communities. And two things could be fees from third-party sources or interest. And I love that in the CCPP, another component that you put is that there is 0% interest rates and no fees. What's backing that decision?
Well, let me take a step back, because actually fees and interest take away from a community when they're not spent back into the community. So if a bank was to take fees and interest and spend them back into the community, then they too are circulating it. But what we know about financial entities is that they take money where the profits are the highest. So they're going to take it to Wall Street. They're going to take it and speculate in New York City, or take it to what's called the center, and leave us, the periphery, on the outside. So we're generating all this value added to our services and production of goods, but it's being taken away. So in the Hudson Valley Current, not only are we promoting circulation, but we're not charging interest and we're not charging fees. And so you get something that you can't get from those other groups that are really about taking the surplus and keeping it for themselves because they're maximizing their profit. That's how they make profit. Chris, on the other hand, in the Hudson Valley Current, it is not about making profit. It is about giving the community a tool to utilize their own resources to trade with each other and keep that money circulating around.
Yes. And that reminds me of the decision was an early decision that the board of directors made because it's a community tool and we're nonprofit. What we've learned from regulators is we fall outside of most regulation boxes because we're not charging interest and we're not making money on lending money. In fact, we don't even have currents to lend. We allow people to become a central bank of their own and have a relationship with their debt. So if you can log into your profile and say, I'm at negative 120, that's interesting. Nobody's charging me fees for this. You know, so you start to get a relationship with what money is, and money is debt. Since the beginning of time, money is debt. Somebody who lent it to you took on a debt when they lent it to you. And at some point, somebody decided that lending is worth something. So let me ask for maybe some extra bison or meat for that exchange. And there was the first fee. And so because we're a nonprofit and we're able to inspire entrepreneurship in the community, we've started 2 businesses that have helped support the current. And we have grant funding that allows us to stay nonprofit. So having a publication related to our community currency and a catering company helps media back our community currency and food back our community currency. And so we don't need to charge fees. And it's actually creating what I think of as a more pure form of money, where the money is just itself, and we each have the opportunity to learn what money is through that. Also, I see the highway coming in and out as what is called tension in the economy. It's in, it's out, it comes in, it leaves, whereas we're trying to create slack in the economy. So we want people to get on the off ramp of the highway, hop on their bike and stay on the bike trail.
Exactly. And we can design the money in a way that is environmentally friendly, that incorporates social justice, that incorporates any goal that you want. If you think hard enough, you can design it in a way that like a city planner will design a road to go in a certain direction. You are planning the roads and the connections, and you're making that capital, which is probably called financial capital, but it's our financial capital. And on top of, with that financial capital, you're allowed to create physical capital, social capital, civic engagement, all the kinds of goals that you might want, environmental capital. That road construction can lead you there.
Nice. And that reminds me of our values and our choices as individuals and business owners. It took us a long time to find this paper, but we found a post-consumer 100% recycled paper to put our money on. We didn't want to use a virgin fiber paper, and we didn't want to use any petroleum content. So soy inks are a choice, 100% recycled is a choice. It costs more, but what is the true value over time? So when we're triple bottom line or multiple bottom line, if I am making a decision about people I work with, I also have to decide how that will affect our community and our environment.
If I give an example of why we can design and incorporate our goals, our ethical goals, to have that triple bottom line, which is people, purpose, profit, right? People and purpose, and we don't have profit we have reciprocity. So we have people, planet, reciprocity. That's what the basis of our triple bottom line is.
Nice.
And an example is this. I know Keyvious is part of this. She's creating what's called the green grocer.
The sustainable regenerative food system.
Yes, and we're going to have quality food that is able to be purchased by citizens in dollars, and they'll get currents. But you can also, from the resiliency market, you can spend those currents on local food. Now, we all know that in Hudson Valley, we produce fantastic local food, right? It's organic, it's produced locally, it employs people locally, it has value, it's been created with love and care, and therefore it's not cheap. but what the current and what a local currency allows is that it allows people who now have the ability to get paid in currents. So we don't have a restriction on the supply of currents, right? We have the tap. Turn the tap on, make payments for whatever spare resources are available. Those people get currents, and now where can they spend it? They can't spend it at Walmart. They can spend it on healthy food, which may cost a little bit more, but they have the currents, they have the income. And we can do that as much as we want, as long as we are creating true value added. And this is where the design and the management comes in.
And Leanne, as that money comes back around, like you mentioned before, if I'm paying for produce that I think is expensive, over time with the multiplier effect, is that produce actually less expensive?
You can afford more. You have a higher standard of living because you have a higher income.
Yeah.
So you have a higher standard of living. You have to pay more for it because the people who produced it deserve more. It is intrinsic that that value must be passed on, but you are now more valuable. And so you now earn more and you can afford more. So living standards rise.
Nice.
I think what you're touching on when you talk about the managing of the system is the third point of the CCPP, and that's that through the current there allows for a community of exchange partners. And the word partners really sticks out to me when we're talking about reciprocity of engaging in the economy, not as an individual, but a partner. So I just want to ask a broad question. Who is my partner and what am I considering when I acquire a local currency or when I acquire the current? Like, what relationship am I considering there?
Leanne, can you answer that question right after I go over the three primary funding streams? So there's going to be a funding stream in the CCPP for nonprofits that makes up to 100,000 currents available. Our goal is to work with 10 nonprofits who would take a 10,000 current line of trust, and that would make 100,000 currents available to nonprofits. Then we also have a food-oriented protection plan that will make 100,000 currents available to food-oriented businesses, both ones that have thrived through COVID and ones that have struggled through COVID, so that the bigger ones that are succeeding can help leverage success for the ones that might be going under. Then the third component is the municipal component, and that will make 100,000 currents available to counties, cities, towns, or villages. And so now there's partnerships that will develop through this cohort. This first round of funding is a cohort of partners. Leanne, do you want to describe them?
Yeah, the partnership, and this is why we need these three layers, the local government, the NGOs, the food establishments. We see them along with the members that are our 500 members that are in the Hudson Valley Current. We all need each other. And the reason we need each other is because we are trading with each other. All the current does is give us what's called liquidity. It gives us the ability to spend before we earn. So if our trading partners, if it was just Chris and I, let's say it's just Chris and I, and actually we do this all the time. He has housing where I need to stay at, and to when I am visiting around the place, I often stay at his place, and I pay in currents, and I do research for him, and he pays me in currents. And so by him paying me in currents, I can now stay at his place more often, and therefore he can afford to pay for more research, and I can stay more at his place, and I can offer more research, and that can go on. That little simple partnership can go on, as you can see, forever, as long as we are reciprocating and keeping our balance close to zero. So I'll go negative, sometimes positive, sometimes when I go negative, he goes positive. But now spread that partnership out into more members. So think of my supply chain, all the inputs into my being. I need to buy strawberries. I need to buy wine. I need to spend some time listening to music. I do all these things as part of my life. So I am spending currents there, and I'm earning currents through my research or through maybe I'm growing my garden and I'm selling some of my produce, baking bread. I love to bake bread. I would love to be able to sell some of my bread so I can earn currents. I'm not volunteering. I'm doing what I love. I want to help my community, but I'm earning currents. And so the in and out makes my balance zero. But having that requires the partnership. It requires the people who are buying my bread, and it requires the musicians who I'm spending them on. And if you match the whole network around in a closed network, you now have a partnership with your community. And you have these little, what's called barter circles, and they populate the community, and those barter circles represent a very healthy community.
Beautiful. Do you want me to show the barter circles or affinity
Sure.
groups at all? Keyvious, what do you think about our timing?
Yeah, I think we should introduce the show for the folks who may be just joining as we're in our last 15 minutes. So Chris, if you want to lead that, I'll pop it on the screen.
Sure. I'm Chris Hewitt. I'm the director of the Hudson Valley Current, and my co-host Keyvious Avery and I are interviewing Dr. Leanne Ussher. She's an expert in sustainable macroeconomic systems, economic thought theory and history, and complementary currency application and system analysis. Leanne created a new educational track at Bard College called Community Currencies, and Keyvious is a student of Dr. Ussher's. Thanks for joining us, Leanne. This has been a lively conversation already, and we still have 15 minutes.
So Chris,
Thank you.
did you want to introduce the research? Sorry.
Yeah, I was just so amazed by the research that Leanne put together for our trip to Japan. We were invited to speak at an international conference on community currencies. And I just learned so much about the current after years of really just doing it out of the passion of generosity, like I mentioned, and revealing abundance and sharing. And suddenly I meet Leanne and she's like, you have 6 years of beautiful data. I didn't even know, I knew we had data because of the software that we use is password protected, encrypted. It's an exchange software. But as she was able to analyze it for the RAMIX International Congress, it starts out with an amazing abstract and about 20 pages of narrative about what community currencies do in general, but also what they've done to the Hudson Valley with the current. And so one of my favorite images, this talks about how we issue currents into the system, how the system and all members are trading with each other, and how we're able to pull currents back out and keep regenerating the system. But what we were just talking about, well, this is beautiful too, because it shows how the currents have stayed in our community for 6 years. And if they bounce to New York, they bounce back because they're attracted back to us. Then finally, my favorite is this one, which Leanne calls neighborhoods. And over time, we found 5 neighborhoods of affinity groups develop naturally. So some might be graphic designers and publishers and writers, whereas another node and affinity group might be farmers, restaurants, and food workers. So this kind of research is what led us to really dive into COVID and do a 6-month study that will go even deeper.
Yeah, and so for the last 10 minutes of this, I want to build off of that, but I want to do a little bit of role playing, right? So I want a walk through this system of how it's gonna look from my perspective. I'm gonna play 3 different people. So starting off, I'm a local business. How does CCPP protect me? How does that look?
Leanne, go ahead.
So if you're a local business, you're probably finding, one, you aren't having income coming in, and you can't keep your staff employed, and you probably have to pay mortgages and pay for various expenses that are ongoing. They don't stop. You also may have to find that when you reopen, you're going to have to remodel your place. Like if you're a restaurant, you're going to have to put up some maybe barriers, or there's lots of different things that people are thinking about that they're going to have to do, but where do they get the money for it? But So what you do by applying for CPP, which is the Community Protection Plan, current Community Protection Plan, is that you are now accessing a line of trust. And what it means is you're building partnerships. You're building partnerships with the suppliers of that perspex that you might need to set up in your shop. You're building partners with the vegetables that you require. I'm thinking of a restaurant, of the vegetables that you require to serve on the plate. You're requiring all these partnerships with the suppliers of your business. And those partnerships are saying, I can't pay you now, I can pay you in current. Will you accept that? And if they say yes, because what you're doing by joining us is that you're joining a network. If they say yes to that, and we are going to help you find those providers, find those suppliers who can offer you all of these local products that you need to get your business up and running, you're going to be effectively sort of telling them, look, I can't pay you right now, but actually what you're telling is I'll give you current. And so now they're happy because they don't have that risk that you don't pay them. They have the current. So there's no counterparty risk. You pay them the current, and you now can establish and invest in your business. Perhaps you can even pay some bonuses to your essential workers. You can now have customers that come in, and those customers are being directed through the currents, through that membership, where members will see, oh, where can I spend my currents? Oh, I can spend them at this restaurant that just was able to open up that previously was closed. Let me go and spend them there. I have currents. I need to spend them. You're receiving them. Let me go spend them. And now what that business owner has done, they went negative when they spent up to $10,000. Now they receive money and they come back to zero again. And maybe they go up above. Maybe their account goes positive, which then allows them to go even back down again, down to the 10,000 again, and up to wherever, and back down to the 10,000 and up wherever. So it's a revolving fund of money that they can access. Now you might be thinking, oh, that's too complicated, I don't understand it. Just think about it in terms of barter. You were able to pay for all these inputs with all your customers purchasing your value added and your goods. And you were able to do that because you joined a network where everyone is able to do that if they're all connected in a circle.
Nice. Yeah, and that brings us to the exchange partners of the CCPP. To bring it back to your question, you're a local business owner. Depending on what type of business owner, the CCPP will affect you quickly or a little bit more slowly. So if you're a food-oriented business owner and you own a restaurant, you'll have access to 10,000 currents through the CCPP, which, like Leanne said, you can pay some of your employees, yourself. You can come shop at our store on the corner of Broadway and O'Neill in Kingston, or we can connect you with a graphic designer. For example, that's part of our existing network. But the beauty of the nonprofits, the food-oriented and the municipal, is nonprofits by design are on the edge of failure. They have to run out of money every year. That's what defines a nonprofit. If there's extra money in a nonprofit, it gets rolled back into the organization, and none of that extra money, or also called excess revenue, goes into anyone's pocket. It goes back to the organization. So most nonprofits run right near the edge by the end of their fiscal year. And so they are struggling very hard right now. So the CCPP is designed to help the agencies that can fail quickly. Nonprofits don't have great reserves or backup plans or capital campaigns, and for-profits often do. But restaurants are struggling. We all know that. Food-oriented farms that don't have demand anymore are struggling. So that's why we chose nonprofits and food-oriented first. And municipal is important because when those other agencies in this whole CCPP can pay taxes and fees, then the government becomes a crucial component of our economy, where we embrace the government and see its economic impact on all of our businesses. So cohort 2 will probably have nonprofits again, but then open it up to all for-profits because they are also crucial to our communities.
Nice. I want to introduce 2 more people to this chat.
Great.
The next is nonprofits. So I'm a local nonprofit. How do I get ingrained in this system? How do I use this system?
Leanne, do you want to talk about that $1,000 offer that we've been discussing?
Yeah. So we're going to, in the application process, we're going to ask nonprofits from this list of partners, from this list of other nonprofits that we have found, like where you can have retreats, or where you can purchase schooling, where you can go horse riding, where there are healthcare and wellness provisions. What do you need for your employees, for your job, for what you do? What do you need? Now, the thing is, people may, these nonprofits might first say, oh, I don't need anything because I never buy anything from those guys. But the thing is, you have surplus right now, and no one is buying from you. No one is able, because they don't have income, to take the things you produce. So this is actually free in a way. All you have to do to access all of this richness and these services and goods for your employees, for your business, for your sector, lawyers, graphic designers, all these things that you may not have thought about before because you were always worried about the bottom line. Now we want you to expand. We want you to think about things in abundance, and we want you to think, wow, I have all these resources that are not being utilized. I just need to utilize them and pass them on, and I can receive all of this. Mm-hmm. And so what we're requiring is that at least in our first phase, we're going to ask, of that 10,000, think of where you can spend 1,000 and earn 1,000. Where can you offer your services of 1,000, and where can you receive services from the cohort of nonprofits that we have? Yeah. And it's going to be beautiful, because you're going to have things that you never thought you could afford.
Yeah. And the example I've been using is, let's say there's the 10 nonprofits in this cohort, include plus the food oriented, plus municipal, but two examples of nonprofits that have shown interest are the Artifact in Poughkeepsie and Kingston Midtown Rising in Kingston. And so Artifact could say, for 1,000 currents, we'll teach people how to do Zoom videos and Facebook Live. And Kingston Midtown Rising might say, for 1,000 currents, we'll put your logo on our banners when we have community events. Now, even the food-oriented groups can say, you know what, I need a training on Zoom too. I'm gonna hire that nonprofit to train us. And then Kingston Midtown Rising might use their 1,000 currents that they earn through the sponsorship to hire that food company to do catering for their board meetings. And so it's all very reciprocal. It keeps money local, and it teaches us who our neighbors are too. That's a beautiful part.
Yeah.
Yes, and the emphasis is not on thinking about the bottom line and how can I maximize what I do. It's about how much can I give to my community, and by giving, I receive. Right.
And that could lead us to the municipal component. Keyvious, do you have any specific questions about that?
No, I just want to know, right now I'm a municipality, how am I protected under this? It's just the last component of this.
Well, I heard from a municipal leader recently that the current is a real solution right now, whereas legislatures are making false promises on future dollars that may not exist. Because when we have a recession and those dollars become more scarce, then we're making false promises on a future that is uncertain. And that's a scary thing. But we've been planning for a recession now for about 10 years, and that is a not scary thing. It's very inspiring that here we are with the opportunity to stabilize our economy and demonstrate to the world how a community currency that is complementary with the national currency is a real solution. And so we don't have specific municipalities lined up. Although I am a town board member in the town of Rochester, I'll talk to my fellow town board members about how this extra 100,000 currents could help us. I'll take my pay in currents from the town board. Let's say Ulster County, Dutchess County, or Columbia County sign up. Now we're talking about a county where fees and taxes can be accepted. So the sky's the limit, like Leanne mentioned earlier, and we have abundance. And what we need are smart people like we've been meeting with all week. And thank you, Dr. Ussher, for joining us to solve this and create the new problems and the evolution of, to create the new solutions in the evolution of currency.
Yeah, I think that what really stands is that everything that's being introduced to the CCPP lies under this umbrella of opportunity and capital. You know, two things that we desperately need in this environment, and two things that we recognize it takes a local currency because the dollar in a lot of ways doesn't allow for that to happen. So thank you too for being my, biggest inspirations and for this opportunity and just teaching me so much along the way about money, local currencies, and how to help our community through that relationship.
Thanks for helping
Thank
put this
you.
all together, Keyvious.
Thank you.
Thank you, Keyvious. Thanks, Chris. And I look forward to having workshops in the community where we can learn more about this and discuss it.
Nice. And I can't wait to dive into some more research with you next week.
Great.
Bye, Leanne.
All right,
Bye.
catch you guys on the other side.